Indianapolis Motor Speedway always has been known for some of the best racing in the world, and today will play host to the first of two of the iRacing World Tour events. The iRacing Grand Am Showdown from Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Will Vincent alongside Doyle Johnson from Broken Arrow and Brad Sanford from Slowpoke Racing. Good evening to you both.
Good evening, Will. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Will. How are you this evening? How's everybody doing out there?
And I have to say, we are going to have some amazing racing today. 90 minutes around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Grand Prix track. We've got ourselves 30 Daytona prototype drivers and 10 Ford Mustang drivers. I'd also like to say a very big hello to everyone watching on GlacierTV.com and also everyone watching at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We've got a couple of drivers who we're going to talk to very quickly just before we run through the grid. The first one of them, we'll get in just 1 second, is David Ward in the pink car. Now David, when we were last here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway and Glacier TV, he won the Grand Am Premier Series, and David Ward, you're looking to try and repeat that this weekend.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm not too bad. Yourself?
Not too bad, just getting a nice little warm-up before big show. I don't think we're going to be seeing any repeats of my last outing.
Now you qualified at a time of 1 minute 20 and pitching 20th on the grid. But the field here is so tight. I mean, the top 20 drivers separated by less than 1.5 seconds. It's going to be a very busy racetrack out there today, isn't it?
Yeah, the talent that turned up today is phenomenal. We've got some real big names, some incredible lap times. Still trying to work out how you can go 1 minute 18 round here, but fair play. It's going to be an interesting race, that's for sure.
You've already said that you don't expect to go back to victory lane here at Indy, but I mean, what's your ambitions for this race? Just keeping it clean? You're aiming for a top 10, top 5?
I think just keeping it clean and finishing this race is going to be an achievement. Just keeping the car on track, not getting any trouble, and yeah, just finishing the race. I think that's going to be the biggest aim for me.
Well, good luck to you, and we'll hopefully talk to you later on in the race or after it, and great luck for that pink car.
Thank you.
Good luck, David.
And we'd also now like to bring in another driver. He's qualified 30th on the grid for today, so he is the last of the Daytona prototype drivers. Mr. Brando Traino, very good evening to you.
Good evening.
And so you qualified 30th, so you just scraped into the field of a qualifying time of 1 minute 20.586, but some very, very tight field for this Daytona prototype class.
Yeah, I was actually surprised to be in this field. I was talking to my teammates and they were like, "Oh, you made it." And I was so happy.
And starting from the rear of the DP class, I mean, what is going to be your ambition for this race?
I think right now, at least for the start of the race, just ride around the back and as the incidents happen, just pick them off one by one.
Well, very good luck to you. We'll hopefully talk to you at the end of this race, and all the very best.
Thank you.
And guys, this track, it's 2.61 miles in length, famous for hosting the Formula One World Championship races from 2000 through 2007. But for me, the key part of the track is when they come to the banking, they run, that short chute down through turn number 1 of the oval, all the way down into turn number 1, very, very fast. And when you set up your car for this track, you've really got two completely different aspects of setting the car up. Be fast and straight away, or be good for the corners. And which way would you go if you were setting up a car for this race today?
Well, if it was up to me, I think I'd be focusing more on the corners today. There's some very, very tight twisties in the middle of this course. Although you do have a long straightaway section, it's going to be won or lost inside the corners on the infield of this Indianapolis Motor Speedway today.
And don't forget, you can keep up with all the action on Twitter as well. You can tweet us all race long by using the hashtag #IRShowdown. That is IR Showdown. And we're reading out some of the best tweets all evening long here on Glacier TV. We're just going to run through the grid in a couple of moments' time. We are in the last couple of minutes now of this practice session. And from the times that we've seen in this practice, it looks as though the field is just as close as they were through qualifying.
Oh, absolutely. They were running some great warm-up laps and some good clean racing in warm-up too. So hopefully that's going to bode well for the grid coming up here.
And we haven't talked about the Mustang drivers, and they really will be crucial in this race here today. There's only 10 of them, but when it comes to navigating traffic on this track, you've really got to be careful just to make sure that you don't catch the drivers at a bad point. So we'll bear that in mind all race long as well. Just going to very quickly run through the grid for this race here today then. In row number 1 of the Daytona prototype field, we have Riku Alauto driving for in the number 8 machine with a time of 1 minute 18.785. Alongside him will be Bruno Ducamo in the number 14 car, 2/10 of a second behind. Row number 2 will be Ryan Field in the number 1 machine. Alongside him, Renato Donales in the number 15 machine. Anthony Rostley, who was so good at the Grand Am Premier Series race a couple of weeks ago, will line up in 5th position. George Sandman will line up alongside him in row number 3. Alexei Lomo will line up in row number 4. Alongside him will be Anthony Helgen. Row number 5, Adonis P. and Richie Stanaway. Row number 6 will be Russell Cow and Philip Krutz. Row number 7, Ken Leach in 13 and Doug Leary in the 14th position. And Harold Stadler and Troy Schultz will line up in row number 8. Michael Abrams and Luis Gonzalez Fibo in row number 9. Ryan Terpstra and David Ward will line up in row number 10. Connor Cross and Benjamin Hart will line up in row number 11. John Malia and Jake Donald in row number 12, with Efkan B and Charles Nick in row 13. Row 14, Dennis Garcia and Paul Ambrosi. And the final row of the DP field will be made up with William Trentino and Brandon Treno in the 30th position. Moving very quickly on to the Ford Mustang field, Eduardo Di Rusta will line up in 1st of the Mustang class. Alongside him will be Philippe Lefty. In the 33rd position overall will be Eduardo Prado. Alongside him in the 16th row will be Jonathan Sayer. In 35th, David Brown, and 36th, Mike Woolley. 37th, J.D. Bogartmer down jump in the 38th position, and 39th and last will be Paul Darling. So guys, very, very big field here today, and for these first couple laps especially, the key thing will be keep the car clean.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a real big challenge. As you say, you've got 2 different cars with 2 totally different handling characteristics and two totally different top speeds. So it's really a challenge to not get your car into another car or get off the track here, because you definitely have a rolling chicane with that Mustang out there today for the DPs.
And you'll see the Mustang field, they will drop back by about 3 or 4 seconds just to ensure that if there's a DP going slowly at the start, they can keep away from all the carnage that may issue ahead of them. The field currently now bringing themselves onto the banking, turn number 12. You see the pace car there leading the field onto the famous Indianapolis Motor Speedway banking. We are very, very pleased to have you along with us for the ride this weekend here on GlacierTV. Don't forget tomorrow, the Brickyard 400, that will be on at 5 p.m. GMT. Meanwhile, the field now coming through the final corner, and you've got yourself Ricky Alatono in the number 8 machine. On the inside of row number 1, Bruno De Carlo alongside him in row number 1. The pace car pulls in, and the iRacing Grand Am Showdown is green.
Right off the bat, Will, you see exactly what you said. The Mustang's kind of giving some room there to the DPs, kind of hoping that first turn will be clear when they get there.
And you're going 3 wide into turn number 1. You see Wayne Terpstra there trying to make it 3 wide in the middle. A little bit of tapping there, but it looks like they've all managed to get through okay. A little bit further back, you can see David Ward lost himself a good number of positions at the start of this race. At the same time, however, it looks like the Mustang field just coming through turn number 1 at the moment. They have just about got themselves through okay. They've got a DP in the grass there towards the rear of the field. We'll try and get an idea of who that is, but he's going very slowly on the grass at the moment.
Yeah, well, that was absolutely an excellent start for the number of cars on the grid today. The Mustangs got through okay, the DPs got through very little cars today, so looks like we've got some skilled drivers. Hopefully we're going to have a really good race today.
David Ward's dropped all the way back into the 28th position, and as they come into the hairpin for the first time, you've still got yourself 2 free-wide racing all the way through the field. Out front, however, it is Rico leading the way in the number 8 machine. The gap between himself and Bruno De Carmo is about half a second as they bring it onto the banking for the first time. Ryan Field sat in the 3rd position, and those 3 cars are broken away by a second already as they come past the start-finish line to put the first lap in the books.
And over on the Mustang side, you've got Felipe Olivetti is already taking the lead away from Eduardo Di Rusta, who had the pole, and we've got a side-by-side racing as we go into the turn. It looks like Eduardo Di Rusta is going to go ahead and take that lead right back from him. So the Mustangs are already swapping back.
And Doug Liu there bringing the car down into pit lane. He was involved in an incident on lap number 1. So that car is down in pit lane trying to get some service very early on in the race, and that is not what he wanted to see. Meanwhile, having a look through the Mustang field, Eduardo there taking a defensive line down the front straightaway, almost making it 3 wide as they come down to turn 1. Eduardo trying to battle to get that lead back 3 wide into the corner. We're going to have
Almost
ourselves a
3 wide.
lead change, and Felipe Olivetti gets the lead there. A beautiful
Nice
maneuver.
pass, nice pass.
And that was a great pass, and it looks like these Mustangs are very closely matched here. You see Eduardo Prado just having to get off the throttle a little bit as they go down into turn number 3, and at the same time, Eduardo Di Rusta trying to get down the inside again.
Wide. Oh, off into the grass, it gets bumped off. He's going to lose 2 positions there on that turn. That was a really big mistake by Felipe Olivetti there today. So, of course, it's not too bad. He can probably get that back up here. But
you say you lost 2 positions, but he's still less than half a second behind the race lead. He's trying to dive down the inside there. Once again, as he does get the car sideways, he's going to lose himself another position. So they come down the back straight away. David Brown and Jonathan Sear both getting past him. And that means that all of a sudden, from leading the race in turn number 1, he's all the way back into the 6th position now. And we've got ourselves a battle for the race lead in. We've got 2 wide action. Ricardo Lauto losing that first position there to Bruno De Carmo as they are bringing it through turn number 4. And De Carmo, though, he's got the inside line into the next corner. He will clear Rico. And Rico is now under attack from Ryan Field in the 3rd position.
oh yeah,
Hey,
look at
Will.
how close they are. 2 wide there, right in the race. Go ahead, Brett.
Will, I just want to let you know, Ken Leach has pulled his car into the garage with a broken axle, it appeared, while everybody was battling up front.
He will be one of our first achievements of the day if he cannot get that car back onto the racetrack. And we've got action for the lead of the race in both the classes. Ruka there taking a lot of curves through the hairpin as they're going to bring it now into turn number 11. This is the battle for the lead of the Daytona prototype field. Ryan Field just sitting there at the moment. He could just be biding his time as indeed now Ken Leach is out of the race, our first assignment for the day. And Rico looks like he's dropped back to about 7 tenths of a second behind as they bring it down into turn number 13. That was turn number 1 of the oval track, down past start finish line again. And guys, what we haven't talked about is the fact that you've got yourself a huge draft opportunity down that long front straightaway there.
Oh, absolutely. If you can manage to catch on to somebody's rear wing there, you've got a huge opportunity to gain some speed and then possibly pull away from the competitors that bring you into turn 1. Oh, diving down into there. Look at that. Right there. Just wing to wing. We're going to see this all day long.
And precision driving is the order of the day. And I don't think these guys realise that this is a 90-minute race. And there will be a little bit of strategy going on as well here. The pit window is anywhere from about half an hour in all the way through to about an hour 5 into the race. So expect drivers to be on completely different fuel loads depending on how much they use their tyres. They might take some very different strategy options, and you will see a couple of drivers wanting to get through the field up front, try and maximise their advantage on what would be slightly lower fuel.
Yeah, and you might even have seen that at the beginning of the race. There could have been many drivers here that actually started on lower fuel, expecting to pit early and get back out on the track and take advantage of that, so maybe they could take less fuel later on during the race. But as the race goes on and we complete lap 4 here, I really think you can start to see the cars spread out a little bit as you see here coming down the straightaway.
You say that about the DP field, but we saw when Grand Antonio was here a couple of weeks ago that the Mustangs, they stay very close until at least after the first sequence of pit stops. You see there, already they're working their way through that traffic, and Carmo getting held up a bit there, and that allows Rico to run the outside and retake that race lead there. We talked about how important navigating traffic is going to be, and the Carmo was the first victim of that here today.
Well, absolutely. As you go through the corners, you've got to realize the difference in the cars. That's going to be key. And as you see right there, one of the Mustangs just got clipped in the back and got pulled right off the race course. That is going to be key to the race today. The Mustangs are not as maneuverable as the DPs, and the DP drivers are going to have to realize that, or they can find themselves into the wall real easy trying to avoid something.
And what will be the issue later on is when you have some of these drivers that are really desperately trying to gain ground, they will start taking more and more risky maneuvers. You see there, DeCarmo, he got held up a little bit again there. The Mustang just didn't see him coming in his background there. And what that meant is that he's lost himself a lot more time. Ryan Field is right behind him, but all of a sudden Rico is managed to get himself up to a 2-second lead out front here on the racetrack.
Yeah, he's definitely taking advantage of that lap traffic situation and managed to maneuver through there, at least during this lap, better than some of the cars in the past. So it looks to me like he's going to maintain the lead, and getting through those Mustangs and that traffic is going to be everything for these DPs.
A little bit further back through the field, we got ourselves a nice battle from 7th all the way through to 10th on the racetrack. That is a number 13 machine of Anthony Helgen all the way back to Troy Schultz in the 10th spot. And they are having some close racing on there at the moment, but we have got ourselves some interesting battles in the DP field. Looking back to the Mustang field momentarily, Eduardo Prado is still your race leader. Eduardo de Roost is falling back to about 2 seconds behind, with David L. Brand coming under a little bit of pressure there as he's got all the Mustangs trying to sweep past him. Mike Woolley in the number 29 machine, off track there. I believe that was in turn number 4. Just looks like he got himself clipped there on the left rear panel of a DP driver. And yeah, in fact, he just got sideswiped a little bit and just got turned around into the gravel, and that number 29 machine is now got a completely bent up right rear fender.
Yeah, and it seemed like most of the passing was happening. The DPs are consistently so far in the race catching up to the Mustangs at the worst possible time in the track. Instead of being able to pass in the oval section or the wide turns, they're catching them right in the middle of all the S curves, making it extremely difficult for everybody to navigate.
And we've got ourselves a battle for the second position at the moment. You see that Bruno Carmo's lost himself that second position to the number 1 machine of Ryan Field, getting very close at the braking there. Has to get right out of the throttle, and that caused him to drop back by a couple of tenths of a second. But out front, Rico Alauto is now up to 3.5 seconds. That race leader in the number 8 machine, so he is driving away. And this is that point in time, just Usain Bolt, these drivers can take risky maneuvers. These guys now have got to close a 3.5 second gap to the race lead, yet that Mustang traffic is going to keep on coming every single lap.
Well, and if Rico doesn't make any mistakes and just drives his race, obviously he's making some good lap times, a minute 20, which is an excellent lap time, even for a qualifying time, let alone a race lap. So if he continues to do that out front, it's going to be very difficult for the other drivers to be able to catch up to him unless he makes a series of mistakes or really gets held up by lap traffic.
I'll tell you what, Renato Donales in the number 15 machine, we talked about how he dropped back at the start of this race in that number 15 machine. He has now closed right back up to the rear of Bruno De Carmo. The gap between second position Ryan Field and Donales, in fact, Loma in the 5th position is currently a 1.5 seconds. So we've got ourselves a nice 5-way battle here on the racetrack. As you see there, Daytona Pro Straight driver just getting put a lap down, and that was indeed Jake Donald, who's live in the 39th position overall. He's had a difficult day. He's 6 laps down already, involved in an incident on lap number 1. I'll tell you who's just coming to the picture, Anthony Rossley as well in that number 7 machine. Rossley's always a master in these DP cars, and it looks as though he's decided that he wants to come and join the party.
Absolutely. See, as you get through lap traffic, the cars start to bunch up, and there's certain, as you can see, some of the cars did exactly what you said. There's some of these cars that are really fast in the straight and through the oval, and not quite as good in the turns. So you're going to see them kind of like an accordion, stretching out and bunching up, and stretching out and bunching up. So that's going to leave a lot for the race today.
Battle for the race lead in the Mustang division. Eduardo Prado trying to go around the outside of Eduardo De Rusta in the number 33 machine, going down into turn number 1. Wasn't quite able to outbrake that 33 machine though into turn 1. Dropped back to about half a second behind as they go through turns number 4 now. I'll be flicking it to that left-hander. I always hated that corner every time I've driven that racetrack. The apex just seems to fall away from you, and you really got to be careful getting back onto the power before you make that right-hand flick. And we've got ourselves a huge battle behind, a four-way fight, and you see that Darren Jump trying to go down the inside of Paul Darling. In fact, he will try and make the move stick, but then as they go into that right hand, the number 31 machine or Darling does manage to regain that advantage. So everything is happening in the Mustangs at the moment, and at the same time, that number 8 machine of Rico Alta is just going to breeze past all of them on the straightaway, so it's all going in that favour of the number 8 machine at the moment.
Yeah, it's great driving going on by the Mustangs. You know, and as this race goes on, and we see them later in the turns, you know, as the DPs start to pass, you know, each lap that's a little bit later than it was the lap before. I had the privilege of running a Mustang around this track several times this week, and I can tell you, it was extremely difficult driving with the DPs in that Mustang. It's not just about driving in front of you. You have to pay attention to what's going on, because they come up really fast, and you cannot alter course on the Mustangs like you can the DP.
Aleski Loma there having a great battle of Anthony Rossley down the front straightaway. You see there's just 5 cars, pretty much nose to tail, coming down into turn number 1. You've got yourself everyone from Ryan Field currently sat in the 2nd position. Then you've got yourself Bruno Carmo in 3rd, United Dornelles in 4th, and you see there they're going to split the Mustang as they come through into turn number 4 now. And what that's done is it allows Ryan Field to just keep that advantage, and Carmo really can have a look there down the inside of him. Dornelles is currently sat in the 5th position, Aleski Loma in 5th, then Anthony Rossley, and it looks as though as well Anthony Higgin is coming up through that field as well. And it's craziness down the back straightaways. You see DP just flicking left, flicking right, trying to go anywhere possible to get around these Mustang traffic. And I think that, you know, we're on a wrong move, and we're going to have ourselves a big pile-up here.
Well, so far, I mean, kudos to the drivers. They've done a really good job of being respectful of the Mustangs and trying to make sure they're not pushing them off the track every time they pass. And hats off to the Mustang drivers for holding their line so the DPs know exactly where they need to go.
Brad, this is very similar. The type of racing that we're seeing here today is very similar to the sort of thing that we saw at the Indy 500 back in May. I mean, these cars are running in so close proximity that one mistake is going to cost you 4 or 5 positions pretty much in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, very true. This racing is an extremely close battle all over the track.
And you see that coming down into turn number 4 again. And almost we had that moment there, as you saw. It was Renato Donelli trying to go around the inside of Bruno Carmo in the battle for the 3rd position. Slid all the way up the race now. Carmo all wide into turn number 6 as they bring it down into turn number 7. Carmo is very close there. He was able to keep a position as Aleski behind him, and Rossley decided not to make the move, but it's still great battle in the top half of this DP field. Out front, however, Riku is still almost 5 seconds now ahead of Ryan Field in the battle for the race lead. And in the Mustang division, Eduardo De Rusta has managed to pull out about a 1.5-second gap now over that number 17 of Eduardo Prado.
Yeah, Will, that was some beautiful racing, 2x2 through the S's for a few turns. It's really interesting right now.
And we're just going to go on board as they come down into turn number 1 with that number 4 machine of Aleski Loma. And you see that they just literally run it to the wall down the front straightaway and then just dart at the last moment to the right when they see that Mustang coming up behind. Aleski there going almost wide into turn number 1. Very big tank slapper there for that number 4 machine, driving for Club Finland, and he really has been one of the most well-known names on the iRacing service for a long time. And he's dropped back now to almost a second behind the Carmo in that battle for the 4th position. But I have to say, roughly behind, I expected him to try and make some more head ground early on in this race. So, guys, do you think that he's just, preserving his tyres? I mean, we're, what, less than 20 minutes into this race?
Honestly, I'm not sure. If you noticed his entry into turn 1 on that lap right there, he drove it in pretty deep and got the car extremely loose and was able to gather it up. I think he's trying to make moves to get up to the front as soon as possible.
And we saw a couple of weeks ago when we were back here, we were running the bike layout. Ruffley had himself a horrible day, getting involved in a huge accident in turn number 4. Managed to salvage that car back up into a podium finishing position, but really his having to work hard here today. The quality of racing is astounding. I mean, we're looking to the field and we've got some great battles going on, even down around Ryan Turcher, currently sat in the 16th position. He has had a tremendous battle with F. Ken Burley ahead of him in the 15th spot, and Benjamin Haas right behind him. We've got ourselves trains of cars going all over the place, and I have to say, David Ward, who's got to at the start of this race, he's not got the most garage paint scheme here today, because Luis Gonzalez Filo, that bright purple machine, you'll know when he's coming up in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, well, and as you notice, the race is going on. I think you're seeing everybody trying to set their pace, trying to run their race, kind of trying to relax. And Brad said, a couple of times you've got drivers, driving it in deep, getting loose. That's one of the things that it looks like these cars are stuck to the track, and maybe they're, not so hard to drive. But in actuality, they're everything, braking, throttle control. These cars will snap loose on you, so you have to pay attention at all times. So I think what we're seeing here is a little bit of relaxation. And let's just run our race. We have lots of laps to run. And
having tested in this car previously myself, it always seems to be when it's far sections of the racetrack, you have yourself parallel to grip. I was just having a quick look at the number 26 machine of Michael Abrams, currently sat in the 17th position. But it's those slower corners where that car, the back end just wants to step out on you, and those big braking zones, especially down into turn number 1, and then that left-hander down at turn number 8 before that right-left hairpin sequence. But that number 26 machine of Michael Abrams, that mid-pack, it really is closely separated, all the way from about 12, where John Mallier is currently sat in the number 12 machine, all the way as far back as Brendan Traino in the number 39 machine.
Yeah, they're really getting spread out here. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens through at least the first stint on pit road. As a lot of these cars come into the Mustangs again, I think you're starting to see the tires heat up a little bit, because I noticed the cars seem to be going a little bit wider on some of these turns, and the braking zones seem to be getting extended.
And the number 14 machine of Bruno De Carmo there just lost himself. 4th position to Aleski Aloma in the number 4 machine. So Aleski is making headroads into this race. Well, unfortunately, we weren't able to talk to him before the start, but we did have a bit of a chat before we went on air, and he said that he was relying on his race pace here today. He was not that concerned about his qualifying position. He did start this race down in the 7th position. He's worked his way up into the 4th position now. But he's one of those drivers who come into that kind of sequence of pit stop. I think that clean air really will help him as he'll just be able to just drive his own race. And even though there will be Mustangs coming to play pretty much every other lap, especially as the Mustang field starts to spread out, I think that he's definitely going to be one of those drivers to look out for later on. And he's still less than 10 seconds behind the race lead, so still got the opportunity to try and gain some ground.
Yeah, he's running a really smart race, and he has gained some time on P3, so I think during the race, as like I say, it's like an accordion. They spread out, they come together. So he's running a really solid race, good lines. So I think that's going to pay off in the long run. It's very nice.
Oh yeah, and so these drivers, a lot of them are used to racing for an hour, hour and a half. But the difficult thing always is later on in that race, when that fatigue kind of sits in about an hour into the race or so, and that is when you're going to see drivers starting to make some more silly mistakes, especially if these drivers are doing a longer stint and they want one tyre, trying to get around Mustangs, and they're still making those big bold manoeuvres. I think that's when you're going to see a lot more drivers fall off the racetrack. Still interesting to note, well, we still have 24 cars on the lead lap. Of course, all of them are Daytona prototype drivers. However, in the Mustang field, all but one of the drivers is still in the lead lap. So that just shows the competitive nature of the racing here today. As I tell you what, though, Eduardo De Rusta has pulled himself out now, a 5-second gap in the Mustang division. So at number 33 machine, now he's got himself out into some clean air. Really is putting away.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be said for the talent and the quality of the drivers driving these Mustangs today, because this car is not aerodynamically sound like the DP. It's much slower, the braking zones, the body roll, I mean, everything about it, it's like the entire package. It pushes and it oversteers, so you've got both things to contend with depending on how your setup is, and you really don't have a chance except for in the oval to really go out the car. So you cannot overdrive this car or you will swap ends. So the quality of drivers in those Mustangs, hats off, especially running up front. Eduardo De Rusta and Eduardo Prada and David Brown, these guys are actually excellent drivers in any race type or any car, because this car takes a lot of finesse just to get around this track.
As David Ward there, he just gets himself up in position. He's now up into 19th position, so he's gained 1 position overall. And I know both of you guys have owned Ford Mustangs. In fact, Doyle, I know that you've got one sat pretty in your garage at the moment, but just how difficult are those cars to control? Because it really is the case of put as much horsepower into it as possible and think about the corners later.
Well, it is an interesting car because the Ford Mustang was obviously built for different reasons, but this particular Mustang was purposely built for road courses. But it has a lot of power to weight, and you have to be very careful with the throttle, good throttle control, because it will oversteer on you in a heartbeat in the corners. The weight shift, the springs are soft, so there's a lot of weight distribution going on here. So everything counts. You actually have to steer ahead of time, and you've got to be very careful with the throttle, otherwise you'll find yourself in a four-wheel drift. It is snappable.
Currently having a look at the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th positions on the racetrack. We're about 25 minutes now into the iRacing Grand Am Showdown on GlacierTV. Very warm welcome to everyone tuning in today. Running through your race field and your top 10 in both cars momentarily. Rico Lauter in the number 8 machine is your race leader. The gap between himself and Ryan Field in second is 5.2 seconds. Noto Dornelles is a further 2 tenths of a second behind. Leslie Loma is in the 4th position with Bruno Carmo in 5th. Tony Hilgen in 6th position, Anthony Rossley in 7th, Richard Tranway in 8th, Troy Schultz in 9th, and Dornaz P is in the 10th position. Moving quickly to the Ford Mustang division, we've got ourselves Eduardo De Rusta in 1st, Eduardo Prado in 2nd, David Brown in 3rd, Felipe Olivetti in 4th, JD Bogard has moved his way up into the 5th position, Paul Darning in 6th, Darren Jump, Mike Woolley and Don Couture round out your Mustang build, and you've got yourself a battle for the 2nd position and a change of position. Ryan Field up into the 2nd position. Was in the 2nd position, now got down to 3rd. And Michael Gonzalez moves himself up into that 2nd position.
And I think you're starting to notice there's a lot of spread in these cars. The Ford Mustangs are spread out. There's not a lot of wheel-to-wheel racing going on at this moment. Like everybody's kind of settling in. You're still seeing a lot of action in the DPs, but I think right now everybody's in, let's log some laps, let's get around, let's get to that first pit sequence and see where we end up after that.
And one thing we haven't talked about is being that lead DP driver, because especially now for Rico, who's a full 5 seconds ahead, he's going to get to those Mustang drivers before anyone else, and he's by himself. So it's almost as though the Mustangs can just be a little bit more lenient to him, just getting slightly off the throttle a bit earlier, letting him pass. But these big packs of drivers, it makes life for the Mustang drivers a lot more harder. So at the moment, Rico really is in the driving seat, just being able to navigate that Mustang traffic all by himself.
Oh, absolutely. And the fact that the Mustangs have spread themselves out means that he's going to be coming across them one at a time instead of a big pack. So it's going to be a lot easier for him to choose his line without losing any speed or losing as little momentum as he possibly can. So unless something happens and the cars bunch up a lot tighter than they are now, it's as close to clean air as you're going to get in a race like this today.
You just saw on the screen Oleski Loma losing himself 2 positions there. So he's down from 4th position all the way down into 6th, being passed there by Ducamo and Hilgen. And Loma now back on the rear foot, lost himself a ton of momentum, but as they come back onto the banking, it looks as though he's going to try and get himself one of those positions back. The draft in these cars is absolutely tremendous as they come down through turn at number 13. Loma looking now to the high side, just trying to break that draft and get himself a nice line onto the front straightaway. They've got themselves, it's so close there, the Mustang traffic now looking down to the inside, coming into turn number 1. This is the battle for the 5th position from the last of the late breakers, and it looks as though Loma's going to try, he does indeed get back that 5th position, but that was damage reputation there for that number 4 machine.
It's probably, it's pretty exciting for this part of the racetrack right now. It looks like it is in that kind of mid-top field where there's still a lot of racing going on. Nobody's really pulling away. It doesn't look like anybody's got anything for Riku, but there's still plenty of racing going on other parts on the track.
So we're now pretty much about half an hour into this race, so the pit window will open very soon. It'll be interesting to see if any of these drivers are going to try and do the short early fill and fill that car all the way up to the brim to run it to the end of this race. We're going to try just very quickly see whether we can get ourselves a quick chat with the race leader, Rico. He's currently got himself a huge gap out front, and we'll see. We'll try and see if this works. In fact, no, we'll try and do it in just a moment of time. Just got ourselves one tiny little issue there. But he is leading this race now by 5.5 seconds in that number 8 machine. His last lap time, just to run through that, was a 1 minute 20.302. Compare that to Renato Donelez in the 2nd position. It's only a 10th of a second faster, but I think that Rico has been a lot better in managing that traffic early on in this race. And Rico, in fact, he's just off there in the number 8 machine, and it looks as though his day is going to be done. He just gets himself wide, and I'm not quite sure what happens there. It just looks like he locked the brakes coming up, spinning the car around in that number 8 CST machine into the gravel, and it looks as though all of a sudden his day is done. And in fact, we believe he might have blown his engine there coming in to that braking zone. It was down into turn at number 6. Guys,
yep.
That is disappointing.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Looks like he lost his
downshifted.
engine right there. Yep, downshift. Looks like he somehow got a unit he didn't want and downshifted and blew his engine. Totally lost traction. Oh my goodness.
And Brad, I mean, you've driven these cars a number of times, and when you're really on the limit of the car, you want to try and shift down as quickly as possible to keep that maximum torque position. But looks as though that was just one, a 10th of a second too early, and that engine decided to blow up on him.
Exactly. The way they have this gearing set could be really close together, and maybe he just missed a gear and shifted down too much, or just had too much RPM going at that moment. When he downshifted, just blew the motor, sent the rear end out, and couldn't stop, and ended in the kitty litter.
So just as we saw in the Grand Am race a couple of weeks back, the race leader out of the race early on here today. That is your biggest story of the day so far. Rico Alauto in the number 8 machine started this race from the pole, got himself up to a 5.5 second gap. He is one of your 30 times of the day in the Daytona prototype field, and it is from the first position, so he's going to be hugely disappointed in that. That puts Renato Donelez up into the first position with Ryan Field in 2nd, and Tony Helgen in 3rd, Eski Loma in 4th, and Bruno Di Palma rounding out your top 5.
Well, and that's exactly what we talk about. Run your race, be consistent, because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, you had a guy that was running a good, consistent race out front, good lead, drop in the hat. Next thing you know, 2nd place is now 1st place, and it's a brand new race. Patience is everything in a long distance race like this.
And in fact, we have got Rico very quickly on the line. And Rico, explain to us what happened there. It just looks as though that it was just a 10th of a second too early shifting down, and your engine blew up.
Yeah, I guess that's what happened. I had a 5-second lead and was driving slowly, and watching out for the Mustangs, and I just guess downshifted a bit too early. The engine blew, and that was it.
And you got yourself up to a 5.5 second lead. That Mustang traffic cone really did play into your favour earlier in the race to help you get some of that. Just how crazy, however, is the racetrack at the moment with all of that traffic you're having to negotiate?
The Mustangs right now are all over the track, and I got pretty lucky with them also that came on the straights, but when they come on the infield, it's really tricky, especially the last few corners. You can't really go outside of them, so you have to pretty much wait and lose a ton of time. Pretty crazy.
A huge disappointment for you, of course, but I'm guessing you're still going to cheer on your friend in the number 4 machine, Mr. Alessio Loma.
Yeah, sure. I was chatting with him on the TeamSpeak while we were racing. Yeah, I hope he's gonna move up a bit and maybe look for a top 3.
Really lucky, starting on the pole, led most of the laps here so far today, and wish you all the best, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks. See you.
And that was Rico there. Really big disappointment for him here today. Big thank you to him also for giving us a quick interview just as soon as he got out of the car. Having a look back to the Mustang field very quickly, and it looks like Eduardo Prado is trying his very best to close down that gap to Giusto ahead of him. Prado's last lap time was a 1 minute 42.561. Compare that to Giusto, a 1 minute 43.421. So almost a full second quicker there that last lap with Prado. It really comes down to, you know, when the traffic catches you. And for these Mustang drivers, you really can't relax because you need to take every opportunity possible to try and close that gap.
Well, yeah, one of the things too is you cannot alter your line. Oh, big spin right there, big spin, big spin. Car off the track right there. But you can't alter your line in the Mustangs because it's not nimble in the way that you would see with the DP. So once you've committed to a corner in a particular way, that's it. You're committed. You can't do anything with it. So it's very difficult to drive. And once again, the DPs have to be very patient, especially when they encounter that traffic in the infield.
And that was Jonathan Sear driving for Eastern Canada there, who just spun that car down into turn number 7. He's managed to get himself back onto the track, but it looks like he's got himself a bit of damage to that race car. We've got ourselves still a great battle in the battle for the 4th position. And Anthony Rossley right up to the rear now of Alessio Loma. And in fact, Loma just going a little bit wide there in that My3 ID number 4 machine. And that has allowed Rossley in the Steel Series Radical car to close right up to the rear to come down to turn number 6. And in fact, if Rossley can get a good drive out of it, he's right up to the rear of them as they come down through turn number 7 onto that back straightaway. And Rossley looking very close there, but having to correct the car. And that will just force him to not get the drive he wanted to try and make a move down the inside, coming down into that hard right left-hander into turn number 8.
Oh, Alessio going really wide right there.
And they almost took him out there.
So once again, it missed his braking zone, missed his spot, and ended up a little wide and lost the position. While we were doing our interview, we saw a little bit of that too. Ryan Field got really jacked up in the Mustang traffic. He encountered two Mustangs while Renato was able to get through cleanly. Ryan Field was not, and he lost a lot of time there, but he's managed to make up a lot of ground.
Yeah, it looks like Loma really is driving that car on the ragged edge at the moment. Rossley, however, I mean, yes, he looks as though he's, you know, braking very hard into all the corners. See Loma there going down the inside, too wide into turn number 1, and Rossley was just able to hold him off there on that outside line. But that was some close straight between those two. It looks as though...
That was a great pass right there.
Rossley just looks as though he's just got a little bit extra in reserve, and now he's got himself some clean air. I really do expect him to try and close up to the rear of Anthony Helgin in the 3rd position. The gap between those two drivers might be 3 seconds on the racetrack, but Loma is not going to give up. He's got some very good skills onto the brakes in these big braking zones. I don't think this is the last you've seen from Loma yet.
On up front, you've got Ryan Field, who's managed to catch Renato Gornales, so he keeps coming up close and into the infield in the tight corners. He seems to have a little more speed. He's braking a little bit later, but he's having a little bit of trouble keeping up on the straight. So obviously, like we said earlier, 2 different car setups here.
Completely correct. It looks like Ryan Field taking a higher downforce setup, which means that he's going to be a lot faster on the infield section, but the passing happens the majority of the time down that long straightaway into turn number 1. It looks like there, Field just hasn't got the straight line speed. You see that coming down into turn number 3, he really does close up to the rear of Ryan Field. He did get himself a bit loose that last time, but in this infield section, he'll close right up to the rear of Donelez, but as soon as they get out of turn number 11, through turn 12 and 13 down the front straightaway, past the yard of bricks, Donelez really does just manage to stretch out that lead to almost half a second in the space of about half a mile.
But, you know, and that's really interesting to see the different types of strategies that we have. But he's hoping that he's going to be able to make all his time up and everything going on in the corners and around the Mustangs. He's definitely set his car up to handle the traffic, so we're going to see if that pays off for him in a few laps here.
And I think one of the big things as well is that Field just hasn't been able to get a good drive at turn number 11, and Donellis really does master that corner beautifully, which really sets him up all the way through turn 12, 13, all the way down that front straightaway. And you see this time by, Field's just a little bit closer, and I think if he can stay within that kind of sub-half second gap, he can at least stay with him, especially when you consider the effects of the draft. But as soon as it gets to about 6 tenths above, it does look as though Field loses himself a little bit down that front straightaway. You see that as they go past a spinning Daytona prototype machine. That was Brandon Traino. Brandon Traino, who was in the 19th position, he worked his way up and he just spins it there.
He's into the wall.
That was a crazy accident. It looks like he just caught a bump there through turn at number 4.
Careful, Lane, get under the track. Oh. In the meantime, back there, Lesky Aloma has lost considerable time again, and he's in the battle for 5th position with looks like Bradley DiCarlo. And I don't know what happened because he was right up there looking at 4th place, and he's lost a lot of time. So somewhere along the line, he got caught in some lap traffic and was slowed down considerably.
Brandon Traino in the number 39 machine, trying to bring that car down towards pit lane. Very, very slow there, coming down the back straightaway into turn number 8. That number 39 machine, who qualified the last of the DP drivers, scraping his way into the field by thousandths of a second. But now he's really just trying to eke that car down to pit lane. I mean, the pit window really is open now, so he can try and work this and bring in a bit of strategy, but he's definitely going to go at least 1 lap down very quickly. But
Ryan Field looking to the inside looking for battle for P1 right there.
But he had the Mustang traffic on his right-hand side, and that's what cost him the opportunity to make the move. And that's what it's all about, track placement. And Donelez, yes, he was on the outside line, but some good forward thinking there from that number 15 machine, and that enabled him to keep the race lead.
Yeah, it's almost like he intentionally used the Mustang for a block. Oh, he's getting really loose. Oh! Once again, no place for Ryan Field to go, even though that was a huge mistake by Renato Donales.
Really did dodge a bullet there, did Donales in the number 15 car, coming down now into turn number 8. And it'll be interesting, now those tyres are really heated up, will Donales be able to get that good drive he's had the past couple of laps out of turn number 11? They got themselves both DP and Mustang traffic too wide there as they both cut the corner. And you see Ryan Field now looking down to the inside as they come down onto the banking. Field just having to get out of the throttle just a little bit. This shouldn't cost him too much now. And this is where we'll see whether Field has got the legs to stay with Donales onto the spanking. The gap is way within that half second area that we talked about earlier. Coming down the front straightaway past the yard of bricks as they come down to put the 29th lap into the books. Ryan Field looking down to the inside.
Taking a draft right there, looking to the inside.
He's going to make the pass.
Oh, pass, great job.
For the race lead, Ryan Field.
Look at Renato.
Although doesn't want any of that.
But Field's going to have the inside line, and they both out the race.
Oh no! Contact. Oh. That's exactly what you don't want to see in these races. Ryan Field able to get back onto the track. It looked like Renato Donales was quite so lucky. I wonder if Ryan Field has any damage from that.
We're going to get ourselves a replay of that momentarily. Ryan Field was down on the inside line, coming down into turn number 4, that long double apex right-hander. Looks like they just touched himself, and Field just trying to get that car just veered it to the left, right into the path of that number 15
Oh, Ryan
machine.
Field off the track completely.
Ryan Field pulling his car into the garage after that contact.
So
Yeah,
Ryan
she's so-
Field. So Ryan Field is out of the race from the number 1 position. So he is going to be hugely disappointed with his performance here today as they're battling for the race lead. Renato Dornelles is also out of the race in the number 15 machine. That makes Anthony Helgen your new race leader. You see the race play coming up on your screen there. Ryan Field was looking down to the inside into turn number 4. Just as they were hitting the apex, it looks as though Field just caught a little bit of a bump, and that split the car to the left-hand side, and it put both himself and Renato Dornelles out of the race. And your new race leader is Anthony Helgen from Anthony Rossley, who somehow managed to get up into the 2nd position and is less than 2/10 of a second behind Anthony Helgen. So as I said, Rossley now coming into the picture. Lesky Lomas currently sat in the 3rd position. Brilliant car in 4th, and Richard Stanway rounding out your top 5 in the DP field. And then in the Mustang division, we've got ourselves Eduardo De Rooster in the 1st position, Eduardo Prado in 2nd, David Brown in 3rd, Felipe Olivetti in 4th, and Paul Darling rounding out your top 5. And just to have a look at that battle for the Mustang race lead, Prado, his last lap was a 1:42.718, but De Rooster's got right back into the groove, and that last lap he pulled himself out a 6/10 of a second gap over Prado in that battle for the race lead.
Yeah, and it's all about where you encounter the traffic and how they treat you. If you get taken off your line too hard, you're going to lose a lot of speed. If you get lucky, you can manage to get through that lap traffic without getting off the line. But I think that's an interesting story today, too. The DP drivers, like we talked about, how patience is everything. We've already seen 2 tragedies up front, and this last one, Anton Higelin, is just like, surprise, you're the new race leader. And all he did was just run the race he's been running all day long. So who will it be at the end? Who's going to be the one that's going to be up front, who ran that consistent race and, ends up finishing up front? And it's anybody's race at this point.
Very quickly, the battle for the 12th position. Benjamin Haas is in the 12th spot in that number 19 machine, coming under a lot of pressure from David Ward in the number 28 car. Now, we talked about David Ward at the start of the race. We chatted to him before we went green here today, and he started from the 20th position, dropped all the way back to 29th in class. In fact, he's going to come down pit road this time by. Well, that number 28 machine was able to get himself all the way up into the 13th position before he made that journey down towards pit road. We've also got yourself a couple of other drivers coming down pit road as we speak. We've got Eskan Burrick, who's making that journey down in the number 23 car, putting himself...
Did the leader just spin?
Yes, he did. Yep. We had Anton Higelin off the track, just spun out, and their new race leader is now going to be Anthony Roselli, with second place Oleski alone.
And the curse of the leader continues here today at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and it is at the worst possible opportunity, coming through turn number 11, and he just got himself a tyre onto that grass, and as soon as you do that, the car just turned itself around, and what he had to do is just wait for almost 15 seconds to let all that traffic go back past him, comes back out onto the racetrack, and in my opinion, that would have been a great time to just come down pit road and get yourself some fresh tyres and top up onto local fuel, but he was really wide in turn number 1 there, so really struggling now with the grip of that number 13 car, but out of nowhere, that still sees radical machine of Anthony Rossley up to the race lead in that number 7 car.
Yeah, and he's under attack by Oleski Loma. Remember what he said early in the race. I'm gonna depend on my race pace to get me through here, and that's exactly what's happening. He's just running his race, getting through the corners, and lo and behold, he's now in P3. No extra effort on his part other than just running a clean race and staying on the racetrack. And I think that's what's going to be what gets you through the day.
So we're about halfway through now the iRacing Grand Am Showdown on GlacierTV. Wolverhampton with Brad Sumford and Doyle Johnson here in the booth here today. Hello to everyone tuning in on GlacierTV.com and everyone watching at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Anthony Rossley is your race leader after we've had now 4 drivers at the front of this race being involved in incidents. At the start it's Rico Alauto, who's just downshifted about a 10th of a second too early, blew up his motor. Then earlier on we just saw ourselves how we had Ryan Field and Renato Dornello back into the race lead. They were involved in a two-car incident with themselves. And then we saw ourselves Anthony Hilgen just dropping himself from the race lead after a spin in turn number 11. Rossley in that Steel Series car looks like he's been very patient all race long, but as we come into the second half of this race, he is under attack from Leslie Loma in the number 4 car. Ruben Carlo just sat there ready to pounce if any other drivers make some mistakes.
And it looks like in the Mustang class, we originally had Rooster out front with a considerable gap, but that seems to be closing because Eduardo Prado, those are really the only 2 cars on the lead lap currently. But Edward Prado seems to be just slowly chipping away at that gap, especially as the Rooster gets caught in lap traffic again, getting surrounded by the DPs. So that just gives Prado a chance to catch up.
Hey guys, it looks like Bruno DeCarmo's headed on the pit road at this moment.
Yeah, so DeCarmo in the number 14 machine, down to 55 miles an hour for the pit lane speed limit. You've also got yourself Charles Nuke down in pit road, as well as is Connor Cross, who's coming out of pit road in the number 35 Suntross machine. So we'll keep an eye on DeCarmo as he comes in to make his stop. He'll be getting himself 4 fresh tyres and topping up on race gas as well. And have a look nicely into his box, very close to the wall actually. In fact, he's having to reverse. He just overshot his pit box. That's going to cost him a second. And the closest we've had in that field, that could drop him down a position and allow Richie Stanaway to perhaps keep 3rd position once that pit sequence is over and done with.
Yeah, that's definitely a mistake you don't want to make. These drivers practice those pit stops over and over and again. So, that's just something you don't want to see is overshoot the pit stall. Your pit crew cannot help you unless you're in your stall.
So the Karma comes back out onto the racetrack and he's now got himself some fresh tyres. So he's going to have to charge the next lap and a half or so to try and make up that deficit. These fresh tyres are worth an awful lot of time here though, guys, especially for those first, couple of laps when you can set yourself some considerably faster lap times than you can do afterwards.
Alexei Aloma is entering pit road right now.
So he's come in from the 2nd position in that number 4 My3ID racing machine. And he is going to really want himself a good stop here. Just eking out every advantage possible as he comes down past the yard of bricks. He's got himself a nice clean exit as well, so that's what's going to be vital for him. There's no other cars on pit road around him, so it's going to be a case of can he get out and gain some advantage to Anthony Rossley. Rossley currently is in the middle section of the racetrack, just coming down onto the back straight away. We'll keep an eye at the same time on Aloma, who's just topping up on fuel now. And for most of these guys, it looks like they're doing the standard halfway pit stop.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they're just a standard, get everything, top everything off and get going. And we'll see if Anthony Rosselli is actually going to stay out for a few more laps. I understand that some of the drivers were planning on not pitting until probably around lap 40. So he may be on a different pit strategy than we've seen with Aleski Aloma.
Rossley's in pit road. Rossley coming down pit road this time by. You can gain a lot of time on this pit entry there. You see the drivers just having to brake for the access road and then brake again down to that 55 mile an hour speed limit. Rossley down into pit road. He's going to have himself a clear pit exit as well by the look of it. He's got himself Michael Abrams, who's on pit lane himself, but it doesn't look as though those 2 drivers are going to come into any form of drama as they complete their service. Rossley is just come past the yard of bricks. He's going to come right hand into his pit stall. Hopefully he won't mess up his start. Nicely done by him into his box. He's going to get himself 4 fresh tyres, top up with race gas, and it's going to be Aluma, who's currently on track, who is circulating now into the final couple of corners through turn number 12 onto the banking here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We'll now bring him through turn number 13, turn 1 of the oval onto the front straightaway. Meanwhile, Anthony Rossley is already out of his pit box. He's now past the cone, so he can accelerate up. And to give you an idea of where Loma is, he is about 5 seconds behind as Rossley passed those cones.
I will say, if you look at the lap times of Alexei and Rosselli's pit time, Rosselli had a 3.5 second lead entering pit road at that moment in a lap time difference, and that's what's given him this almost 5 second lead coming out.
Yeah, and I have to say, it was a great in-lap there by Rosselli. He really did attack pit entry there, and he gave himself a lot of time there. Aloma is actually stuck in a little bit of traffic here. He's got himself ahead of him, Bruno Carmo in the number 14 machine, so he's lost in position to him. Aloma really has had a difficult sequence of pit stops there. And remembering the Carmo was the driver who overshot his pit box and lost himself, about a second. So Carmo's actually had a very good outlap. Aloma's had a very bad pit sequence, and that's going to really cost him the last stages of this race. And we're just getting actually word from our technical expert, Yoni Backman. Rosselli's stop was actually the slowest of everyone. So that all comes down to, again, that in-lap, and Rosselli really nailed that pit entry, whereas Aloma, somewhere on the racetrack, he's lost himself a considerable amount of time. Perhaps he had himself some Mustang traffic that we weren't aware of, but really, Aloma should have been a lot closer to Rosselli. In fact, he is a full 6 seconds now behind that number 7 machine. So, George Sandman is currently your race leader in the number 10 car. He hasn't, however, come down pit road. Anthony Rosselli, who has pitted, is in second. Bruno De Carmo in third has pitted, as has Aleski Aloma in fourth. In the Mustang division, we have still got ourselves Eduardo De Rooster as your race leader. Eduardo Prado is in the second position. Keep on going back and forth between the two of them as the DP traffic works around the grid. So one lap, one gains a bit, and then next lap the other does. And Felipe Olivetti is up into the third position. Paul Darling in fourth, not too far behind. So going to have ourselves a nice battle for third position in the Mustang field developing momentarily, as Darling is only about a second behind. And as Olivetti had to get out the bottom and move to the right hand side, almost into the access road to allow some DP drivers past. That allowed Paul Darling to play right up to the rear of them. As they come past the line of a second, the gap is now down to less than 1 second.
And as you notice on the back for the viewers that may not get the discrepancy, the DPs are coming up over 40 miles an hour faster on that backstretch than the Mustangs. There's a huge gap in speed right now. So that's kind of gives you an idea of how fast those DPs are closing on those Mustangs.
Oh yeah, and not only that, down the straight line, these DP drivers will use every single little bit of draft humanly possible to try and eke out every 100th of a second. And what I think is going to be key later on in this race is the Mustang drivers will really come back into play. So I think they will start moving back up, as we saw them do when we were here a couple of weeks back. And it's going to be interesting to see whether or not some drivers can gain time and fresher tyres later on in this race. I'm looking for people like Aloma to get back on the charge, to try and get themselves around Bruno De Carmo and battle for that third position, and then try and close down Anthony Rosselli behind him. But I tell you what, Rosselli is just charging at the moment. His last lap, 1 minute 19.896. Compare that to De Carmo at 1 minute 20.460.
Yeah, you've got on the Mustang side, you've got a big battle there. This is probably the first action we've seen in quite some time, because there's a huge gap between P1 and P2, and then you've got 3 and 4, which is Felipe Olivetti and Paul Darling. Once again, gaining and losing ground there. So it looks like Paul Darling is attempting to put the charge on Felipe Olivetti, and giving us some action in the Mustang classes.
Don't forget, tomorrow we will have the iRacing Brickyard 400, the best of the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series drivers from iRacing will be battling it out for 160 laps of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Oval. That will be 4 p.m. GMT, only on GlacierTV. And guys, tomorrow's race is going to be as crazy as this, if not perhaps even crazier, with those Sprint Cup cars.
Oh, P1 got pushed off the track. Oh, and Felipe Olivetti was pushed off the track by a DP as he came around, then allowed Paul Darling to get around there. Oh, that's tragic. This is exactly what we're talking about. Those DPs closed really fast, and he was not able to get on the brakes in time, and gave the old chrome horn to Felipe Olivetti and pushed him right off the track.
And that number 29 machine, that car is pointing in all the wrong directions down the back straightaway at the moment. I will correct myself one more time. It is the Sprint Cup cars, not sprint cars, so that would be even more crazy. But Olivetti, he's going to have to come down pit road in that number 11, in that number 20, in that number 11 machine even, and his race is pretty much done now.
Yeah, and that's what you got to watch out for. So you get into this race, you got 32 laps down, and DP driver gets a little too zealous there in the traffic and the turns, and it's over with. And DP drivers have to be very, very careful because the Mustangs just do not have the maneuverability. They cannot get out of the way, so you have no choice but to maneuver around them.
Paul Darling comes down pit road in that number 31 machine, coming down into his pit box now, so he's going to try and capitalize by making his pit stop. He's going to get himself some fresh tires. Yes, in fact, he is getting himself some tires, and he's going to top up on gas as well. Just very quickly to run through retirements in this race. Ken Leach is out of the race. Rico Alato is out of the race. Ryan Field, Renato Dornelles is out of the race in the DP class, as is in the Ford Mustang division. Jonathan Sir is, in fact, no, Jonathan Sir is still in the race in that number 9 car, but he's pointing in all the wrong directions. We saw himself have a huge moment earlier on, and I think he's doing a really good job just by keeping that car on the racetrack.
Yeah, the Mustang is a handful when it's working well and everything's straight. So working with a bent suspension, and yeah, he's doing a great job of keeping it on the track and not causing a hazard for other drivers.
Currently having a look in the battle for the 7th position in the Daytona prototype field. That is between Adormas P and Troy Schultz at the moment. Troy Schultz looking down to the outside, coming down into turn number 1. He's got himself a very good drive actually. He had to be careful not to go too deep into turn number 2.
Oh,
and he had the inside line. He had the inside line, but just got that car a little bit too squirty in turn entry. And now they've got themselves some Mustang traffic to come into play as well. But Schultz is having a great drive at the moment, and it really does look as though he's got something extra at the tank. He just can't clear some of these other cars at the moment.
Yeah, he looks
Will,
like he's close to it.
I was just going to say, I was letting you know, right now there is a great battle for third right now between Bruno De Carmo and Alexei Aloma right now.
And Alesky is back on the charge in that number 4 machine. We talked about earlier on how he's had himself a couple of issues in this race, but the raw speed has been tremendous for him. He's looking down to the outside line. Oh, very close there.
Ooh.
3 wide into the corner. Aloma's going to try and capitalise, but he's going to go wide a little bit. He had to get all the way out of the throttle there. And that was Charles Nee, who was going down a lap there. 3 wide. He was running all the way to the wall. And that was a close racing between them. He was about 50 miles an hour off the pace there. But again, Aloma, very, very close to being able to get himself clear, but just doesn't look as though lots going his way at the moment.
Yeah, Loma's been trying that a lot going into turn 1 there, trying to do a little bit of a deeper braking, just has not been able to pull it off through the S-curves right there.
And Aloma's going to get held up a little bit there by that Mustang, the number 11 machine, who we talked about earlier, being involved in that incident. But I think if I was Aloma, I would just probably, drop back, pull those tyres off a little bit, and then do a huge charge in about 2 or 3 laps time, because all he's doing at the moment is burning up those front tyres, and later on in the race that really isn't going to help him. Tell you what though, Anthony Rossley has built that gap up now to 7.5 seconds almost over Carmo and Escaloma in the battle for the 3rd position. And every time these 2 drivers fight out on the racetrack, Rosselli is just increasing that lead. And although George Sandman is technically the race leader, let's not forget Sandman is still yet to pit.
Well, and that's something interesting too, because next thing you know, George Sandman, he hasn't been up in front. Next thing you know, he's our race leader, and he does have a good 3 seconds over Anthony Rosselli. But again, like you said, he hasn't pitted yet, so this is going to be a temporary lead for him. But he's definitely proven he's got the car and he does know how to drive. That 3-second gap is not peanuts.
So we're just over an hour in now to the iRacing Grand Am Showdown at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway here on GlacierTV. Don't forget you can tweet your thoughts and comments on the race by using the hashtag IRShowdown. You'll see it on the top left hand side of your screen. Once again, the hashtag to use tonight is hashtag IRShowdown. And I tell you what, there's still battles going on throughout the racetrack. John Malia and Ryan Terpstra, we haven't talked about those too much here today, but they're battling for the 9th position. John Malia in the number 12 Torque Freak Racing machine is only about 2 seconds ahead of Ryan Terpstra, who looks like he's trying to close that gap as they're fighting for positions in the top 10. And that number 28 machine of David Ward, we talked about him at the very start of the race, but he's managed to get himself up all the way into the 11th now.
Well, this is almost an endurance race. I mean, you look at, you've got people like Richie Stanaway, who's now in P5. And I'm not sure if he's pitted yet either, but you've got a lot of changes from the beginning of the race. It's almost like it's another race. About, every 15 laps or so, we've got a whole new group of cars we need to talk about.
And Malia and Ward especially, there's really a lot lost between those two drivers, I'll tell you that one. But they race very often in endurance style races of this length or longer. In fact, they were both featured in the Torque Freak Racing Super Cup that ran for a good year and a half on iRacing and had some great battles between them. So these two drivers are used to doing, hour and a half, 2 hour races on a week in, week out basis. And coming into the latter stage of this race, that will be what comes into play, especially when you compare some of these other drivers who are more used to the 45 minutes, hour sprint races.
It's like Antoine Hidlin is pretty much closing the gap on our friend Richie Stanaway there. So he's closing up pretty fast, so leave him out in the charge. Looks like we're going to get a battle for P5 here shortly.
Yeah, and Anton Hedlin is getting himself a good job coming out of the final corner onto the front straightaway, past the yard of bricks and that famous scoring pylon. Tell you what though, the battle between Aloma and Takamo, that is not over, and this time Alessi Aloma is a lot closer as he's bringing it through turn number 5, that right hand flick before he does that hard, long, double apex of turn number 6. I hate that corner so much. If they flick it onto turn number 7, they've got themselves Mustang traffic ahead of him. That's going to hold up Takamo just a little bit, but Aloma wasn't quite close enough to get any form of advantage out front. I mean, it's not really about the race lead, but technically now, Anthony Rosselli is back out in front, leading the scoring sheets here at Indy, passing George Sandman in the number 10 machine, and he's got himself a load of Mustang traffic ahead of him onto the banking, and like we saw early on, it looks like traffic at the moment is going all Rosselli's way, clearing them with the banking down the front straightaway.
Yeah, Lex leading on these 3 laps, and of course, next lap it could go absolutely against him. So he's had a lot of that. He just cannot fix it and fix it breaking. Unfortunately, right now it is going his way. So hopefully, in his sake, it'll continue to go his way.
And let's not forget, when the Grand Am Premier Series was here earlier this month, Rosselli was really in the driver's seat for the first part of that race before he's involved in a huge crash on the bike layout in turn number 3 and 4, which put him out of contention for the race that David Ward won, the guy who took the start of this race. But for Rosselli, I think this is now a case of retribution. He's had a great showing in the Grand Am Premier Series, but for him, winning at Indy, regardless of what car you're in, always is something special that you want to savour, and I'm sure Rosselli would want to be kissing that virtual yard of bricks coming into this race.
I will tell you, Will, if the second half of this race goes anything like the first, Alexi and DeCarmo might be in the perfect spot right now.
And I tell you what, Aloma all over the back of the car. We're having a look at it on our screen, and I'd say some very good camera work by our GlacierTV guys. Big thank you to Jamie Backman, who I believe it's been shooting like 4 o'clock in the morning this time already. So up all night is Jamie Backman as we come down the front straight away once again. In fact, it's 5:30 in the morning. Just to let you know. So Aloma closing hard, but still not being able to do anything with Carmo. And I think Aloma's actually running a higher downforce setup because he's not being able to get that huge draft on the front straightaway like we've seen some other drivers do.
That's exactly what I was wondering. I was wondering what the downforce difference between these cars are.
Yeah, Brad, we're going to get you on track, at 200 miles an hour, and we're just going to get you to measure wing angles, if that's okay.
Not a problem.
Down the back straight away. This is the battle for the third position that you're looking at the moment. Bruno De Carmo, he's pretty much been thereabouts in the top 5 all race long. Alone, he's had himself a good, strong race. Just a couple of moments that's put him back in the pack. Had himself a very slow in lap and out lap as well, which cost him dearly, which put him behind De Carmo, and he's really found it difficult to try and get back past him. I think the raw speed that we saw from Alone at the start of this race just hasn't been present in the second half. But Rosselli, while all of this is going on, Rosselli looks like he's lost himself about a second out front in these past couple of laps. That gap was up to almost 7 seconds. It's now back down to 5.5.
Yeah, looking at well, and that's going to happen off this race, like we talked about, with the lap, lap traffic and the way things are going in the different types of cars. Same thing going on with the battle for P5 with Richie Stanaway and Antonio Higuera. Back and forth. Looks like Higuera's going to be underneath him right here. Going into turn 1. Is he going to make the pass? Going to make it stick? Yes, he is.
He'll cut across nicely, and he does get a position. Job done.
Excellent braking in turn 1.
Yeah, that was great car control. Richie Stanaway went in a little too hot. Probably got a little intimidated with him on the outside. He was braking a little too late, caused him to go wide. And
Sorry, I
he's
have
now
to
finding
interrupt
himself
you.
in P6.
I think that was Bruno De Carmo, though, just almost involved in a big moment there. In fact, yeah, it was a Mustang driver. That was Jonathan Sear in the number 9 machine. Bruno De Carmo got really, in fact, they're just a little bit of a tap between them. What that did was De Carmo went wide in that corner, then wide in the next corner. And what that did was allowed Escaloma to finally get underneath him to move Escaloma up into the 3rd position, De Carmo down into 4. I'm just wondering whether or not De Carmo got himself a little bit damaged. In fact, he did. Just to the right, to the left of that guy, you just see it's a little bit crumpled. And these cars will rely so much on downforce, that is going to hurt him for the rest of this race.
Yeah, and it depends on what happened when he did that tap on that Mustang. He might have done some damage to the Mustang too. They look pretty tough, but actually they're really not. So if he's done some suspension damage, that Mustang driver may have to get down in the pit and hope his pit crew can bang out the fenders a little bit.
In fact, you saw De Carmo just sliding it there through turn number 4. It really does look as though, even though that was a really slight tap between those two drivers, De Carmo really has taken a battering to that left front part of that race car, running it a bit wide there in turn number 7. So Escaloma now, in fact, he closed that gap again to Rosselli. It's now down to less than 5 seconds. And with Aloma in clean air, guys, this could be the opportunity that he needs.
Well, yeah, and he's got to get by George Sandman right here, and he definitely, as soon as he managed to get away from the battle he was having with Bruno De Carmo, he was able to close the gap on Sandman. And I mentioned earlier, he hasn't pitted yet. I'm sure, because we're on lap 50 and he's still leading.
In fact, De Carmo had a slow down penalty as well. He got word from race control. He was too wide exiting turn number 7, and like we saw with Sebastian Vettel at the Grand Prix last weekend, you know, you can gain an advantage by going out onto that extra bit of asphalt, but if you do so, you're going to have to slow down, and it costs yourself more time than you gain overall, because you have to lose about 3 seconds. Escaloma, however, he's gaining a second a lap on Anthony Rosselli, so he's going to be right up towards the rear of George Sandman anytime soon. And this will be the battle for the race leaders. De Carmo goes under the grass again. That number 14 machine really is struggling now in that 4th position, and that is going to allow Antonio Higuera to come into play, and this is going to be the battle for the 4th position. And even though he's got himself a 9-second gap, that is going to disappear quickly if De Carmo carries on having issues with that race car.
Oh yeah, and you saw the battle earlier between Richie Sandaway and Antonio Higuera. It looks like he's going to pull up, and he wants to, and if Bruno De Carmo's car is damaged or he's off the pace, Antoine is definitely going to take advantage of that.
The contact between Carmo and Jonathan Sears, in fact, puts it out of the race. So he's your first real Mustang retirement of the day. Game over for him. Aloma looking down to try and get the 2nd position overall. Again, we can take George Sandman out of the picture just a little bit. And in fact, this is looks as though Sandman is just going to let him go past there. He knows he's on a different strategy. He is in it for the long haul. But Salmon now down into the 3rd position, Aloma up into 2nd, and guys, the charge is now on.
Well, and that's what, see what happens. Is Anthony Roselli going to fall to the curse of the early leader? Is Oleski Aloma going to be patient enough to kind of wait that out? So we're going to find out. But that's, as we've seen so much today, just because you're up front with a big gap does not mean anything. It's where you end up when the checkered flag falls, and we're going to find out if Oleski Aloma's strategy of just running his race is going to work for him.
Less than 20 minutes left to go here now at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The iRacing Grand Am Showdown on GlacierTV. Will Vincent, Brad Tumford and Doyle Johnson in the booth. Your top 5 in the Daytona prototype field is Anthony Rosselli in 1st. The gap between himself and Oleski Aloma just over 4.5 seconds. George Salmon in the 3rd position. Bruno De Carmo in 4th. And Richard Stanaway in the 5th position. And we're just having a quick look at the battle for 10th and 11th. That is Ryan Terpstra and David Ward. As Simon, in fact, does now come down pit road. In the Mustang division, it is Eduardo De Rooster still leading the way. Eduardo Prado in 2nd position. Felipe Olivetti in 3rd. David Brown in 4th. And Darren John in the 5th spot. And, we've talked about how this is an endurance race. We've talked about how this is a race that you've got to take lap by lap and just keep it clean. With less than 20 minutes left to go, though, it is now time to put that hammer down. If you've got anything left in reserve, this is the time that you really got to start using it.
Yeah, they're going to run out of laps real quickly here. So whatever strategy you have, you better start using it and try to close the gaps. One thing I want to mention at this point in the race is Eduardo De Rooster in the Mustang. What a great race he's been running. Very consistent all day long. I mean, as far as the Mustangs are concerned, he had nobody in his rear view mirror. He's been running a great race, very consistent, keeping it on the track, managing that BP traffic. So, hats off to Eduardo De Rooster for running a great race so far today.
We're having a look at the battle for 11th and 12th position. David Ward under severe pressure from Benjamin Pass in the number 12 machine. In the number 19 machine even. And Ward looks like he's running one of those. In fact, I know he's running a lower downforce setup because I was talking to him before this race. But it looks like for him that strategy's working because he's not allowing Pass to get close to him down in turn number 1.
Yeah, David Ward actually was taking about 1.5 seconds per lap, or over the last 2 laps against Ryan Terpstra until he ended up, I believe in turn 3 or 4, got extremely loose and lost a bunch of time to Ryan, which allowed Benjamin to catch up to him now.
And let's not forget, David had himself a scrappy first part of the Grand Am race, which he ended up winning. And I remember that he said to me after the race there that car just doesn't like it, doesn't like the tyres in the middle of the stint. It loves it at the beginning, it loves it at the end. In the middle, however, it's always really difficult to drive. And these are some of the sacrifices that these drivers have to make because, running 45-minute stints on these tyres, you can't have it, grip for a couple of laps. You've got to have it for the long haul. And you see him just getting a little bit loose there in turn number 10 as he brings it back onto the banking. I have to say though, Richie Stanaway and Anthony Hilgen, they are still battling for the 4th position overall. And Hilgen, in fact, looking down to the inside into turn number 8, and it looks like Hilgen's going to get the pass done in that number 13 machine. Beautiful manoeuvre into turn number 8 there, and he will retake the 4th position.
Now we've seen these going back and forth probably for the last 20 laps. Antoine gets ahead, and then Richie gets ahead, and either way, so they're very evenly matched. The cars are probably set up very evenly. Drivers are very evenly matched, so they're going to battle it out probably all the way to the end. So these guys are probably having a lot of fun out there right now.
And guys, we are over an hour and a quarter into this race, and we still have 11 cars on the lead lap. Tremendous driving by all today.
Yeah, that's amazing for the technical track that we're on today and the fact that we're running 2 different cars. So hats off to all the drivers.
Anthony Rosselli, he's built that gap back up to 5.2 seconds. That last time by, in fact, the 2 laps previous, Aloma has pretty much lapped identically to Rosselli. So it looks like he had a bit of a charge going about 5 or 6 laps ago, but now Rosselli's been able to respond. I always said he had a little bit extra in the tank, and that number 7 Radical Steel Series machine has maintained that gap now. In fact, he's just pulling up a little bit. I'm just going to flick back over to the Mustang class. I always feel bad for the Mustangs because they've got a quarter the number of cars on track. They always get less TV time. But that Eduardo De Rooster at the moment in the number 33 machine, he's got himself a full back straightaway gap over Eduardo Prado. So, you know, at one point Prado was catching De Rooster, but all of a sudden De Rooster just pulled that gap back out, and as we're in the closing stage of this race, you know, De Rooster can now afford to be a bit more generous when DP drivers come storming down the inside of him.
And it looks like we might have a little bit of a battle going on in the Mustangs between Felipe Olivetti and David Brown. Seems to have closed up on that. So there's that gap is really, really narrow. And that's for obviously in the race position 29 and 30. But for the Mustangs, that's really actually P3.
And Olivetti's pretty much been in that third position for the last almost 45 minutes or so. So he's not really had a car, you know, frisking around his rear end too much for this race. But it'll be interesting to see whether or not Olivetti can handle that pressure in that number 11 machine. David Brown's had himself a great drive, being able to move himself up into the 4th position in class. And I've got a feeling that that will go down to almost, in fact, the last turn of the last lap.
And that's extremely possible. But it looks like Olivetti's got a little bit more going on in the straights than David Brown does. But then David Brown seems to be manipulating the braking zones a little bit better than Felipe Olivetti. So you're right. I think this is going to go down to the wire and maybe get a real good battle there in the last 5 laps.
And you see that Brown can just get so much speed in the straightaways. He managed to pretty much half that gap through the oval section of this racetrack. So they come down into turn number 1 again. Dude notices, you see that DP driver just storming down the inside. And it does,
oh my goodness, there's going to be words on the track. That was uncalled for, I have to say that.
And
That
was
was
Bruno De
ridiculous.
Palma. In fact, that was Bruno De Palma. And wasn't it the 11 machine earlier on who we had a moment with? Was that a little bit of revenge for that?
Maybe so. Yeah, that's not the kind of racing you want to see out here. A little bump and run. The Mustangs got to run too, so that definitely put Felipe Olivetti in a bad position right there.
Let's not forget, boys, it's in Bristol.
Yeah, no kidding.
And that battle between Anthony Helgen and Richie Stanaway in the battle for the 4th position in the DP class, that is continuing. You saw they were just going too wide a couple of moments ago into turn number 1. Helgen is still keeping the upper hand in that fight. And to be fair, I have to say, George Sandman, he's slotted back into the 5th position, so it looks as though, with all the opportunities to take today, his was the best by doing the long run, because all he had to do was take a little splash of fuel and he's back out onto the racetrack.
Yeah, like you said before, different strategies, different pit strategies. So now we're winding the race down. We're going to find out exactly which strategy was the best. And again, that little splash of fuel, get you back out there in the car. That'll make up for some lap times we'll find out here.
And don't forget, once again, guys, tomorrow, 4 p.m. GMT, the iRacing Brickyard 400 on Glacier TV, 160 laps of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Oval in the Cup car. And we're going to have ourselves some big names. And once again, that will be broadcast on Glacier TV and also at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So feel free to join us for that one tomorrow here on Glacier TV. We're now down into the last 10 minutes of the iRacing Grand Am Showdown. And Rosselli looks as though he has just kept that gap now and he can cruise it home in that number 7 car.
Yeah, if he can keep it together and just run his race, just keep his lap times consistent, and he's definitely got a heck of a gap there, and really nobody else really near. So we'll see if he can keep it together for the rest of the race.
Just saw that a change of position that was between Harold Stradler and, in fact, no, Harold Stradler and Doug Leary.
Doug Leary.
Yep, Doug Leary in the number 5 machine. So. Interesting battle going on between these two drivers. Doug Leary moving himself up into the 17th position, Howard Stradler down into the 18th position, and even all the way back through this DP field, there is still some close battles going on. And for a lot of these drivers, they came into this race knowing that they weren't going to win, not even necessarily get themselves a top 10 finish, but the heart of some of these drivers is just absolutely astounding. And you know, I always have to say that it's not always who first that matters. It is, you know, your own performance. And for a driver like Leary, late on in this race, to still be able to close and pass drivers, great job by him.
Yeah, and if you take a look at where we started, who were the fast drivers at the beginning from the grid? Ricky, Alantalo, out of the race, Carmo, not really up there like he was. Ryan Field out, Gennaro was out. You know, Anthony Rosselli is the only one left of the top 5, gridding drivers that really has been able to maintain the race. So it's not all about how fast you are.
And just to put that one with an exclamation point, Richie Stanaway down on pit road getting some repairs to his race car.
Whoa, Dennis Grazy just flipped a Mustang going into P1, turn 1.
And that is a big crash for him there. In fact, we'll try and get ourselves a replay of that. But I have Stanaway, he's lost himself that 5th position, and that gives Anthony Helgen a bit of breathing space late on in this race now. And having a look back at that replay of Dennis Garris coming out of pit road, down into turn number 1, and it just looked as though there was nowhere that he could really go, but I'm sure it's just that Mustang coming in. I mean, did that Mustang see him? I mean, at some point, Garris is going to have to turn to the racetrack, and yes, he might have taken that apex a tiny bit too wide, but I mean, where else was he supposed to go?
Yeah, that's part of the racing is that when you're a DP driver, you got to be aware of those rolling roadblocks in front of you and be careful. Because, that's what's going to happen. And once again, they're unable to maneuver. They're going to see you coming. There's not much they can do.
And I mean, to be fair, Russell could have taken the inside line underneath those cones into turn 1 and just suffered the penalty that he would potentially be given to be slower through turn number 2 and 3. But when you've got that many cars, coming up behind you, traffic is always the big thing here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, regardless of what car combination you're running, regardless of what layout you're running almost. Rosselli, however, out front, gap up now to 5.8 seconds over Leslie Loma. And I think now it's that point where Loma's going to think, nothing else I can do, keep the pressure on, and just hope Rosselli makes a mistake in the latter stages of this race.
Yeah, and I'm sure his team owners and his pit crew and himself, I mean, he's brought himself up with his strategy, stayed with his race, didn't allow anybody to take him off his race, and he's sitting, he's on the podium, so there's not a whole lot to be disappointed with about that.
And we've got ourselves a potential for a battle for the 3rd position. In fact, it's coming more and more to fruition every single lap. DeCarmo, we talked about how he's had some damage to his race car. He's still in the 3rd position, but Tony Hilgen is closing that gap in the battle for that 3rd position in the number 13 machine. And I think there's still a little bit of action to come in those top 5 positions before this race is over in the DP field. In the Mustang division, I have to say, just like Rosselli's dominating in the Riley division right now, Eduardo Gusta has dominant performance back in the number 33 machine, and he's pretty much had a faultless drive all race long now.
Yeah, as I commented before, he's doing great racing with the Mustang. That really is. So hopefully he can hold it together and take it home. Meantime, that battle between Antoine Higuerin and Bruno De Carlo is heating up for sure. Absolutely right in the turns. It looks like Antoine Higuerin is really going to try to put the pass on and put the pressure on really hard.
If he's going to do something, he needs to make it quick. He's starting to run out of time.
But you say that, I mean, it could be a drag race to the line. If he can get a good drive through turn 11 and run it all the way down through 12 and 13, especially when you consider the fact that, Carmo's not got the best car underneath him, he's going to be slow through that turn number 11, 12 sequence of corners. There's still the opportunity until they cross that yard of bricks and take the checkered flag. It's not over, and the Carmo really is struggling there. And there's an hour in Helgen to get right close up to him. Let's have a look now as they come through turn number 12. In fact, we'll try and see if we can go on board with that number 13 machine. Just he's closing that gap up to the Carmo, onto the banking now, through turn number 13, and I've got a feeling like that Hilton just hasn't got the downforce required to try and make a slingshot pass. He's gonna have to do it in the twisty bit and try and force Carmo in that damage race car into the mistake.
I think he had a little bit of a false start coming out of that corner because he really caught up to him quickly. Oh! And so he's got the car, so he's just got to keep it together. The Carmo is really feeling the pressure right here. You can see how he's starting to brake and his car's starting to slide a little bit. So, you know, he's going to have to settle it down if he wants to keep him behind him.
Yeah, that battle is far from over. In fact, it's getting more and more exciting every single minute. And I have to say, 63 laps these drivers have been racing around here now. I mean, it does get repetitive at times, but not when you're in a position like this. And Higlin is really, really close now as they come down into turn number 8. And I think this is a position where he can gain a lot of time. This is where, you know, downforce really does count from turn number 9 and 10. And in fact, they've become getting a little bit wider exit at turn 10. This is going to allow Higlin to try and get the opportunity from turn number 11. But still not quite close enough. He might be able to make the move down to turn 1 if he can keep that draft going.
There he goes. He's starting to close the gap. I think Anton Higlin is kind of making a classic mistake. He's almost following Willie Blanc instead of making his own line.
There he is.
There goes.
To the outside, he's going to the last light breakers. In fact, he's going to almost clear him, but now Higlin's going to have to take the outside line.
Traffic. Oh, not quite able to make that stick.
Oh, and he's being held up now.
Again.
He's Higlin just a little bit there. And in fact, he's going to see if he can try and close down the next one. But this time, the advantage has been negated. It's Higlin there, able to close right back up to the rear of Carmo as they're coming down into turn number 5. And we have got ourselves a couple of laps left to go here. So Higlin's going to have to try and make the manoeuvre in possibly the next lap because we just saw that he's not got the straight line speed. In fact, he might have the opportunity now. And the two collected. Carmo somehow keeps it going, but
Great save by Carmo.
once again, it was the Carmo and the number 11 machine.
There's something going on between those two, for
Not
sure.
quite sure, but there's definitely going to be some work between them after this race.
Look, at least you know. I think Angelo needs to kind of pick another line. He seems to be following Bruno De Carmo's line a little too closely, which I think is keeping him from getting a good advantage on a pass. He doesn't want to be on the outside of turn 1. He wants to be on the inside.
But you see there that Carmo is running all the way down to the wall, to the line there. This time, he's going to clear
he's going to make a
before they
stick.
get the past the finish line.
Oh, nice pass by Anton Higlin.
It's the lower downforce at play right there.
And we're into the final couple of laps here now at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the iRacing Grand Am Showdown on GlacierTV. Anthony Rosselli is your race leader. Alex Giloma now dropped back to 6.3 seconds behind. And Tony Higlin is in the 3rd position with Bruno De Carmo in the 4th position. And George Sandman, after that strategy, it works out perfectly for him. He's running out your top 5. Then Schultz, Malia, Turkson, Ward and Benjamin Hart running out your top 10. And looking very quickly to the Mustang field, we have got ourselves Rivka from Prado, from Brown, from Olivetti, from Bogardner. Bogardner has almost come out of nowhere in this race. He qualified, second from last in the Mustang field. He's got himself up into the top 5. So even though it's a small field, a good drive by him as we're on the white flag lap now. And Anthony Rosselli is coming through turn number 2. Flicking it now to the right-hand side through turn 3. And it's going to be very, very close if this isn't the white flag. I tell you what, the timing beams is going to be inches apart here. But Rosselli coming now down into turn number 6, perhaps for the final time. He's going to do that long left-hander and then flick it to the right-hand side now onto the back straightaway. He's got himself a DP driver ahead of him. He's going to put a lap down. That is Howard Stradler, who is 1 lap down in 16th position at the moment. You see, just letting him go past there in the number 34 machine. Perhaps just asking for the pain to end a little bit sooner for him. Rosselli now into turn number 9. Turn 10, that left-hand hairpin. Bringing it now through turn number 11. And onto the banking he comes now. Anthony Rosselli in the number 7 Steel Series Radical machine. Onto the banking, the short shoe of the oval, so famous for passes and incidents through the year, through turn number 13 of the GP track. turn number 1 of the oval, and in fact it looks like he's got himself one more lap left to go, and that was literally seconds apart there. So one more lap there for Rosselli as he comes down into turn number 1 one more time.
Out front from the Mustangs, you got Eduardo Di Rusta still out front, still dominating, wire to wire, just trying to drive his race to get through there. So it looks like Eduardo Di Rusta's got just a couple more laps, and he's going to be counted our leader. Hopefully he's going to take that checkered flag.
And guys, do you know how close that was? 1 second was the gap between Rosselli crossing the start finish line and the timing elapsing. 1 second. So, you know, if Rosselli just put the clutch in, he could have closed to the line and got the job done. But he wants to do another lap. He's done 66 and a half of them here today, here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Been pretty much faultless for all of them. And Rosselli now, he's coming back through turn number 9, turn 10. He's got himself the number 11 machine ahead of him, of Filippo Olivetti, who's had some drama in this race today. And Rosselli just going around the outside of him, using that curb nicely as they bring it into turn number 12. And keep an eye out, some drivers might just run out of fuel having to do that extra lap here today. But Rosselli coming through turn number 13 for the final time now. He'll come past the yard of bricks to win the iRacing Grand Am Showdown, and he has done a tremendous job. Retribution for Rosselli after his moments in the Grand Am Premier Series a couple of weeks ago. And that is going to be hugely satisfying for Rosselli. Alessio Loma comes home in the 2nd position, and we'll have a bit of a wait now from Antonio Helgen, who will come home in the 3rd position unless anything dramatic happens. Eduardo Di Rusta, he is currently on the pretty much in the middle of the track in turn 6, so keep an eye out on him. He's still got a full half a lap to go for himself as Antonio Helgen comes past the start-finish line. He will claim the final spot on the podium here today as Bruno De Carmo, driving that hugely damaged car, I'm sure himself and the number 11 car will have some words after this race. He comes home 4th. George Sandman from nowhere comes home in the 5th position in that number 10 machine. And you know what? George Sandman, he qualified in 6th, dropped back early on in this race, moved himself back up into the 5th spot. It's a great drive by him. Troy Schultz will come home through the final corner now for him in the number 2 car. He will come home in the 6th position overall. And John Mallia, Ryan Terpstra, Benjamin Hurst, and David Ward will round out your top 10. And in the Mustang division, Eduardo Di Rusta coming down into the final corner now. So much slower, these Mustangs. You've got to egg them almost up to 130 miles an hour past the yard of bricks. And Eduardo Di Rusta wins the Mustang division there after an absolutely faultless drive. Di Rusta takes the checkered flag.
Yeah, great run by all these drivers today. It was a great race, a lot of lap lead changes, great running. Anthony Rosselli, hats off to him, congratulations. Alessio Loma running that very patient race, and Antoine Higgler just came to that battle with Bruno Di Carmo, who we have to give a lot of credit to because he was damaged. He was driving a very damaged car there, and he managed to pull it home in 4th place, so hats off to him as well.
And I tell you what, for everyone who's watching who's new to iRacing, one thing that we need to mention is the classification system of drivers. Drivers start off at a rookie level, and then they'll work their way up through the D class, C, B, A, and then up onto the Pro DWC levels. The winner of the Mustang division is a Class D driver. So he's not been on the service too long, driving in a car, which is very difficult to drive, but Eduardo Di Rusta beat some very, very good drivers to take victory here today, and he's got to be incredibly proud of himself.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, you've got even the top 3, all the podium, Eduardo Di Rusta, Eduardo Prada, and David Brown, very good drivers. Again, this is a Class D driver. The Ford Mustang is not an easy car. There are other cars that are much easier to drive in conditions like these. So, you have to give a lot of kudos to somebody that can handle a car like that, keep it on the track, especially when there's other cars zipping by you 40 to 50 miles an hour faster than you can go. So, once again, excellent job by Eduardo Di Rusta.
So confirmation of your results there. Starting first in the Daytona Prototype Rileys, Anthony Rosselli takes victory with a time of 1 hour, 31 minutes, 16 seconds. Alessio Loma comes home in the 2nd position, 6 seconds behind. Anthony Hilgen in the 3rd position, Bruno DeCarmo in 4th, George Sandman in 5th, Troy Schultz in 6th, John Malliott in 7th, Ryan Terpstra in 8th, Benjamin Haas in 9th, David Ward rounding out your top 10, Efgen Berkey in 11th, Charles Nick in 12th, Michael Abrams in 13th, Doug Leary in 14th, Howard Stadler rounding out the top 15. You'll see the rest of your Riley field coming through your screens momentarily. And then in the Ford Mustang division, in my opinion, first of all, the driver of the day, Eduardo De Rooster, takes home victory in the number 33 machine from Eduardo Prado in the 2nd position, David L. Brown in 3rd, Felipe Olivetti in the 11 car in 4th, JD Bogardimer in 5th, Paul Darning in 6th, Mike Woolley in 7th, Darren Jump in 8th, and your single retirement in the Mustang field, Jonathan Sir. And we've got ourselves a couple of drivers who would like to talk to. We'll start with 2nd position. Aleski Aloma. In fact, Aleski Aloma, you've had yourself an interesting race today, but you managed to take home 2nd, which I'm sure at some points in the race is more than you could have asked for.
Yeah, I had a good setup and decent pace. Not really top pace, but good enough to run on the back in the beginning.
And you had yourself some interesting moments in that race. We've seen your car just snap loose a couple of times. I mean, just how difficult was it to drive that My 3ID machine today?
Well, I had to tiptoe. It felt like if I started to push it, then the car would move around. So it was a little slippery, but I think I had less downforce than like Anthony. And yeah.
And the My 3ID / versus Radical battle continues. Looks as though that they beat you this time, but you've got yourself the DWC races still to go this season. My 3ID doing a great job over there at the moment. And do you like the battles between yourself and these other teams? I mean, does it give you something interesting to do on the racetrack?
Yeah. You might know something from the last DWC season, but yeah, it's kind of when we practice, we'll always, pretty much always comparing to Hutu and Team Redline, or trying to figure out how fast they are going and spy and if we can. But yeah, it's kind of make us work harder, and it's kind of fun because it's like last race we find out some speed and Hugo was dominating. Like, it felt good.
Well, it's almost 6 o'clock in the morning your time now, so well done staying up through the night. Go and get yourself some sleep, and congratulations with your 2nd place finish.
I just wake up.
Well done to you. Meanwhile, your race winner here today, Anthony Rosselli. Last time you were at Indy, you had yourself a terrible race. However, a bit of retribution for yourself today, taking home the victory.
Yeah, thanks. Last time at Indy, I ended up on my roof for a little while, so that wasn't very good. But this was a great race, and had a really tough battle with Alexi and a bunch of the other guys, and really glad it worked out. Finally been able to finish a World Tour event, so that's pretty nice.
And it looked as though for the first part of that race especially, you were just sitting back, not taking any big, bold manoeuvres, and all of a sudden you ended up getting yourself, into 3rd, then into 2nd. But once you got the race lead, I mean, did your mindset change, or was it just a case of, okay, it was just another lap?
No, it's always just another lap. I have a kind of theory that if you slow down, you crash. That's always how it's been for me, so I just go pretty much as I can every lap.
And that Radical Steel Series machines had a great drive here today in that number 7 car. And it always seems to be hit and miss when we talk to you guys. It's either a great result for you or a really bad result. But I'm sure that yourself and all your teammates are really going to be happy with that win. So have you got anyone who you'd like to thank?
Yeah, I'd definitely like to thank Andy and all the other Radical guys, because they give me a lot of support, and they always help with setups and just being there for the races. It's a really great team.
Well, congratulations on your win here today. I'm sure we'll see you many more times throughout the rest of the season. And great drive by you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. And thanks for the broadcast. They're always great.
And next up, it's time for Mr. Pink, Mr. David Ward. And you've had yourself a very interesting day today. At one point, we saw you drop all the way back to pretty much 29th in class at the start of this race. You worked yourself back up into the 10th position, and you said at the start of this race, the top 10 will do you fine. So well done.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened at the start. I think I was being overcautious. I should, if I'd have been a bit more aggressive, I might have been battling maybe with Malia and that lot up in 5th. But yeah, it was a pretty good result. Should have finished 9th, but the car just ran out of fuel on the last corner, and I think it was Benjamin just hit me to the post.
You can blame Maselli for that one. The gap between himself taking the white flag and not taking the white flag was a second.
Oh, right, okay.
But it looks as though that car is a bit of a dog to handle in the middle part of a stint. I mean, were you really having to drive that car hard today?
Yeah, it was. I felt like I was on the limit quite a lot. I should have spent a bit more time with setup, but I only realised that this event was taking place on Thursday, so only 2 days to work on a setup.
And have you got anyone who you'd like to thank at all?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Slowpoke Racing for helping me out with some setup ideas, and everyone at Mini Talk if you're watching.
Come on, do yourself a big mini talk thing again. You did it last time, so you might as well do it again.
Big shout out to everyone who's watching from minitalk.com, and a big shout out goes to Minicraft and everyone else who runs in the UK Time Attack series.
Well done, top 10, and we'll probably see you this weekend at some point.
Thanks, mate.
And I'm just waiting for confirmation of who's going to be next. We've got many people we're still going to talk to, so I'm going to stay on air just for a couple of minutes more. Mr. George Sandman, you worked strategy perfectly to your advantage today, and you got yourself a top 5 finish, so well done to you. But one point you lead in the race, even though Rosselli was closing you, was it just a case of, sticking to your strategy and not overdriving that car?
Well, it didn't quite work out how I planned it. I got hung up too much at the start. I actually, coming into the main banking, in the first few laps, I went to the left, got stuck behind a GT, and had like 6 or 7 DPs just fly. I couldn't move back over into the line. So if I would have been able to hold my position better, maybe I could have got closer to maybe a top 3, but that's all I was really trying to stay towards the front.
And just how difficult was it to navigate traffic at this race? I mean, you talk about how, one wrong lane change will cost you a lot on the banking, but in the corners as well, especially in the middle section of that racetrack, from turn 5 all the way through to technically turn 10, it really did seem like you had to take some big, bold moves while navigating some Mustang traffic.
Yeah, that's just the timing. I always seem to hit that stuff at the wrong time. If you hit it just right, it's okay, but you got to take some chances and know when you got to back off. And most all the GTs are really good. They can get a little scary, but I'm glad we had a good race. I had 0 incidents.
And well done on getting yourself a top 5, and we'll see you, I'm guessing, in the Grand Am Premier Series.
Thank you much.
From the Rileys, on the request of Mr. Doyle Johnson, we'll head over to the world of the Mustangs. Mr. David Brown, congratulations on your 3rd place finish here today. And for the Mustang drivers, especially at the start of that race, that field was absolutely crazy. Take us through your race.
Well, the start was very fun there. I mean, we were all getting a good draft on each other. I saw the first 3 they were pulling away from us, and they were playing some games, breaking the draft there and stuff, and it was cool to watch from, I think I was 5th place at that time, and I was just trying to stay out of the way of the DP cars. I knew I'd get a decent finish if I did that. I had nothing for the 2 Eduardos up there.
And we've heard from the Riley point of view, navigating the Mustang traffic. For you, it's almost the other way around. You've got to or I would say allow the Mustang, the Riley traffic to get past you while keeping yourself some form of lap time. But how difficult is it to be looking in your rearview mirror almost every single corner to see when the next rider is going to come breezing past you, especially with that speed differential?
Well, the nice thing is the F3 keeping it up all race. It kind of gave you an idea. Like by about 10 or 15 laps into the race, you could start to really judge when a Riley would catch you based on, like, if they were 5 seconds back, you kind of got an idea on where they were going to catch you. And I just tried to run wide as much as possible whenever give them the inside, and just try and not get damaged out of it. I didn't mind losing a half a second or a second a lap, just to survive.
And finally, that Mustang is an absolute dog to drive. How difficult is it?
Excuse me.
Oh, shut up, Doyle. Just how difficult is it to, navigate that car for a period of 90 minutes on a track which is so technical?
It wasn't as bad as I thought it'd be. I just bought the Mustang on Monday, I think it was. Like, I'd never been above the Grand Touring Car Series until today, and I mean, when I first got it, it was horrible, but after a little bit of setup work, it really wasn't that bad. My car was a little loose all race long, and I was fighting that all race. It hadn't been like that in practice, but other than that, it really wasn't too bad.
And overall, it was 2 newer drivers to the Mustang on the podium, so really big well done to both of yourself and Eduardo de Rooster for your great performances here today. So congratulations for your podium finish, and we'll hopefully see you again in the Mustang soon.
Yeah, I'll definitely be running more of these. This was a real fun car to drive in.
Well done.
Is that a fun car to drive in?
And finally, we'll have a quick chat with Mr. Last Place Man on the grid.
Thanks.
No. You came home 17th, so you made yourself up 13 positions in the race. So, Mr. Brandon Treno, nice solid race for you.
Yeah, thanks. I was really cautious on the start. For some reason, the car was really free. I could barely get back to the gas, and I think about like 20 minutes in, I finally lost it and stubbed it in the tire barriers, and came in, reset, and just kept the throttle down and trying to gain as many positions as I could.
And it's been a crazy race all race long. I mean, after your incident, was it a case of, just trying to pick drivers off one by one, or you just trying to drive to a lap time, or were you thinking about the traffic around you, or just thinking about your own race?
I was mainly thinking about my own race, just trying not to stuff in the tire barrier again. But just trying to pick off drivers one by one and hopefully get a top 20, which is what I ended up with.
Well done on your race. I know that you've done not as much practice as some of the other drivers, so good job on getting yourself into the field. I mean, I had a look and you scraped in by thousands, so well done on that. It's always an achievement to get into these big races. I remember I did it myself once. And also well done on your finish, and we'll see you again soon.
All right, thank you.
Good job, Brandon.
And we'll wrap up very quickly. First of all, Mr. Doyle Johnson, driver of the race.
For me, absolutely has to be Eduardo de Rooster. Great job with the Mustangs. Tough car to drive, navigated through. I think he had a lot of challenges, so he's my driver today.
Mr. Sanford?
I have to say Anthony Roselli. He took his time in the first half of the race. He avoided the problems that most of the early leaders had by ending up crashing and was able to take his DP home to a great victory tonight.
I'm, for once in my life, going to side Mr. Doyle Johnson. I think De Rooster did a great job in that Mustang division, especially when you consider the fact that there is many more drivers, many more laps underneath that belt compared to him. Staggering performance by him. And I think he just did a sterling job. And let's not forget, tomorrow we're going to do it all over again. It's going to be the iRacing Brickyard 400 on GlacierTV, 160 laps, 400 miles around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Oval with the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series cars. So that will be at 4 p.m. GMT tomorrow. You can find all the information for that on iRacing.com. Meanwhile, for myself, from Yodi Backman, from Brad Sanford and Doyle Johnson, it is time to say goodnight. So goodnight.
Night, everybody.
Night.